If you're even remotely interactive with the online Kerbal Space Program community, then this past week you've probably seen a lot of fanfare over the release of a new mod. And this fanfare isn't without merit. I think this is one of those landmark mod releases, to be honest. Think Parallax, Scatterer, and Volumetric Clouds level of landmark. This is a visual mod that is frankly astounding in my opinion, and it's what I wanted to showcase in this video. The mod is called FireFly, developed by MirageDev, and there's a link to download it in this video's description. Now, you guys know me, I don't really do the whole narrow mod showcase video that just exclusively shows what the mod does and, what it is, and then that's it, that's the whole video. I like to present them alongside doing a full mission in Kerbal Space Program. So, if you just want to see what the mod does, then you can just Google it, I guess, or search it on YouTube. I know SW Dennis did a good little showcase video of it. Anyway, I haven't actually said what FireFly is yet. No, it's nothing to do with the real-life company FireFly Aerospace. This mod enhances re-entry and aerodynamic effects, completely replacing the stock effects, featuring, per the mod's forum page, a smoother double-layered plasma trail, bowshock in front of the ship, new particle effects, in-game effect editor with many configuration options. And trust me guys, that description doesn't really do it justice. The re-entry effects are amazing, and this is yet another example of something KSP1 modders managed to do way better than an actual game studio managed when attempting to make KSP2. Shots fired, I know, but whatever, I guess. I think the mod is called FireFly because it's to do with fire when you're flying. I have no idea though, I didn't really read any further than the first few bullet points of the mod forum page, so maybe that's not it and there's another reason for the name, but whatever. I should probably just acknowledge what's on screen, actually. When I installed the mod, I just reloaded some quick saves from previous missions to see how craft looked when re-entering, and by far the prettiest was the re-entry of my Mun space shuttle craft, because space shuttles look awesome during re-entry, even in stock KSP, and they look absolutely incredible with this mod. So, I decided to build a space shuttle for this mod showcase, capable of placing a full orange tank in LKO, as is the standard unit of success when designing shuttles, at least for me. There it is in the cargo bay at the moment, but it's not going to be the actual payload for this mission. I just had it there for test flights to validate this craft's performance. And one thing I found during these flight tests was the fact that the shuttle flew horribly during re-entry and return to the Kerbal Space Center. Unfortunately, it's really hard, if not impossible, to make a faithful stock recreation of a NASA space shuttle, because the mass of the engines and empty tanks in this game is huge compared to how it would be in real life, and when there's no payload, that means that the center of mass is far too far back for this thing to fly stably. It just constantly wants to stall and flip over backwards. To counter this, I clipped a half-filled big ore tank, along with some batteries and reaction wheels, into the forward cockpit to act as ballast to force our center of mass forwards sufficiently ahead of our center of lift. And then it flew really well. So yeah, if you want to build a kind of NASA-style space shuttle, I'd recommend doing that. That's not to say you have to, you can fly this thing without all that ballast in the front, but it's much, much harder. So yeah, like I said, I validated this space shuttle's performance by having it able to place that big, fully filled orange tank in LKO, but the actual payload for this mission will be an Apollo-style command pod, purely so we can deploy it and then deorbit it and see how that looks re-entering compared to the space shuttle. And there's also going to be a small monolithic space station, which we'll deploy and then we'll later go and visit with an SSTO spaceplane, because aside from space shuttle re-entries, the next best thing with FireFly is hypersonic spaceplane flights, both during the acceleration phase of the ascent and of course during the re-entry. And hey, for kicks and giggles, I'll also be deorbiting the mini space station once we're done with it, just so that we can watch how that thing looks when it's re-entering. So lots of re-entries are going to be showcased in this video, as well as, of course, hypersonic spaceplane flight. But all of that is going to be following on from our space shuttle launch, which hasn't lifted off the pad yet. You can see it's kind of on a makeshift stand I made with some fuel tanks. I thought it was a brilliant idea, but as you're about to see, it didn't really work that well. Yeah, so as you saw, the SRBs of the shuttle just overheated and eventually just blew up some of the supporting structure of the launch pad. The problem with space shuttles in Kerbal Space Program is the launch clamps that you normally use to secure your rockets to the pad don't work so well. The rocket ends up sort of bashing into them, or the wings clip them upon liftoff. Didn't really work that well. So I really liked my fuel tank based solution. Obviously, needs a bit of refinement. Now, although the FireFly mod is the main thing I want to showcase in this video, I do have another mod installed. There it is appearing. We have Vaporcones now. This is a mod by Reddit user ShVAK. You can get it on SpaceDock. I'll put a link to this one in this video's description as well. They actually just messaged me on Reddit and was like, I've made this mod that adds Vaporcones. Do you want to try it? And I'm like, yeah, I'll try that. So I tried it. I liked it. And the rest is history. History, just like the solid rocket boosters are history as well as we continue on our journey to space. We can probably just speed the footage up a little bit because it's a bit samey now, isn't it? Just having the space shuttle attached to that external fuel tank. Now, I did say that I was trying to make this shuttle kind of like NASA style, right? So it's obviously got the 2 solid rocket motors, and then the space shuttle engines are fed by that big orange external fuel tank, but there's no engines on the external fuel tank itself, which, you know, is contrary to the Soviet Buran shuttle, but also contrary to, I think, how most people build their first space shuttles in Kerbal Space Program, because this way is just much harder. But one way this deviates from the NASA shuttle is that our on-orbit engines are going to just use the same fuel that our main engines use, just, you know, liquid fuel and oxidizer, just because the real shuttle used monopropellant, but the monopropellant engine in this game, the Puff, sucks. It's rubbish. So I'm just going to use Terrier engines and pretend they're being fed by monopropellant. That being said, the space shuttle, I'm like pretending that it is a different fuel type. So the Vector engines only ever use fuel from the big external fuel tank. There is no fuel on board the shuttle that feeds into those Vector engines. So now that the fuel tank has obviously been detached, those Vector engines, we're going to just assume they no longer work. And we're going to use our, I'm doing the air quotes thing now, monopropellant to feed our Terrier engines using the liquid fuel and oxidizer of those 2 Mark II space plane adapter piece sized parts on the edge of the shuttle. There is a big liquid fuel and oxidizer fuel tank, kind of that's what the, I guess, external engines are attached to, and it's what the tail fin is attached to as well. That fuel tank is empty there though. It's purely just there to serve as like a structural piece for the engines and all that to attach to. And, you know, we can pretend that inside that is like, you know, engine mechanisms and working and wiring and, you know, all that good stuff. I did a cheeky little F5 and F9 press just here, actually. There was a residual graphic from the decoupler part that attached to the external fuel tank to the shuttle, but it shouldn't be there, and quick saving and quick loading despawns it, so that was the purpose of that little quick save and quick load just there. And yeah, we successfully circularized our orbit using those 2 Terrier engines. And yeah, this thing actually has quite an impressive amount of delta V, considering it was only really designed for low curb in orbit missions. Not that I spent that long designing it, mind. I just sort of built what I thought was a fairly accurate looking space shuttle, and then I just launched it and hoped for the best, and yeah, it turned out well. So I guess what I'm saying is that I'm just great at this game, guys. So make sure you've liked the video and subscribed as well. You know, I make 2 videos a week with very few exceptions. Mondays, I do weekly spaceflight and space news recaps. The algorithm unfortunately dictates that I have to make Starship and SpaceX the focus of the title and thumbnail, but I do try and cover all space agencies and missions from across the week. And every Saturday, I make a Kerbal Space Program video. And you know, this week, this was the week of the mod FireFly. You go on the Kerbal Space Program subreddit right now. Every post, basically, is this mod. But who knows? I don't know what it's going to be next week. I kind of just, you know, procrastinate and put it off, and then it's like the day before Saturday. I could have just said Friday, couldn't I? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to make a video. And then I'll just, like, black out, and then I wake up 24 hours later, and just a video has appeared in front of me. It's wild stuff. Anyway, I've now deployed the payloads. So this is the second payload, or the first payload, depending on how you want to order them. We got 2 of ours, so there were 4 Kerbals on board the space shuttle main cockpit. We transferred 2 of them onto the little space station, and Bob coming there, he's transferred to this, our test re-entry capsule. I've got monopropellant engines here, look at that. I said the Puff engine sucks, well, I'm using it here. Because it only has to maneuver, well, we've got 4 of them, and they only have to move that command pod, basically. So it's pretty much within the capability of the Puff engine. But I wish there was a beefier stock monopropellant engine in Kerbal Space Program. There's a real missed opportunity in KSP2 as well, although, yeah, KSP2, not really relevant anymore, is it? Anyway, here we go. It's the re-entry that I've been hyping up this whole video. The FireFly mod. Wow. Isn't that cool? I don't know if I should be quiet for this, or if I should carry on talking. I guess like the sound is, the sound is no different, it's just the visual effect. But yeah, how amazing is that? This is great. I love it. I love this mod so much. And there you go. We have now passed through the re-entry heating, so I guess we can speed the footage up. But this is just the beginning, guys. Like, once, you know, I'll do, like, I'll probably do a few, like, for the next few weeks, I'll probably try and do missions to all the planets with atmosphere. So I did Jewel recently, so maybe not Jewel, but I'll do Eve, even though I did Eve last week. I did Juno last week as well. Okay, I'll have to think about it, but I'd like to showcase some atmospheres and showcase the amazing re-entry effects with the FireFly mod, but I'm not going to install it, you know, anytime soon. I have no plans to ever uninstall it unless, you know, it gets replaced by something. But yeah, anyway, Bob has now splashed down. We can now crossfade back to space and have a look at our little space station just there. I deployed everything and realized actually that little magnetometer boom, it's in kind of close proximity to that solar panel. When the solar panel rotates to, you know, maintain alignment with the sun, it's going to clip through that boom and look really weird. So luckily, one of the Kerbals, I should say, on board is an engineer Kerbal, so we can just go out, remove the magnetometer boom and reattach it so it's not near that solar panel. And then here's a little speed run tour of the space station. So it's just literally the hitchhiker storage compartment and the lab, and that's it. It's tiny, but you know, it's just a little space station, just something for the space shuttle to deploy, basically. And yeah, we'll come back to the space station a little bit later on, but right now, well, the main event is coming up, guys. We're going to deorbit our space shuttle and then re-enter, and rather than just splash down in the ocean like with the capsule, we're going to make an attempt to glide back to the Kerbal Space Center. And, you know, it has to be gliding, right? We've got no engines that we can use. The Terror engines, you know, I'm pretending these engines only work in the vacuum of space, guys. So we can't use those if we need to do a little bit of a boost when we're flying, or if I'm going to be overshooting or undershooting. Can't use those Terror engines. And the Vector engines, while technically I can use them because I have liquid fuel and oxidizer on board, I'm pretending I can't. I'm pretending they can only be fed by the big orange external fuel tank, which of course is long gone now. So here we are. So I did a retrograde burn, and then I re-entered and massively undershot the KSC. So I did a stealth quick load just there, raised our perigee a little bit to like 25,000 meters, and this is my second attempt. Actually, it wasn't my second attempt. Basically, guys, this was a really difficult re-entry to film. Now, I don't want to sound arrogant. I'm pretty good at re-entering and reaching the Kerbal Space Center's runway these days because I've been doing this for like many years, so at this point it's pretty second nature. But I wanted to showcase the re-entry effects of FireFly, which are now kicking in, by the way, which meant showcase like filming the shuttle from this angle, which meant I couldn't see what was ahead of me. So I'm so used to like using like those mountains to the west of the Kerbal Space Center and like the land masses to figure out what kind of angle attack I need to be having in order to make sure I get to the runway okay. But I couldn't do any of that because I was having to like film the shuttle like this. So I'm intermittently flicking the camera around just to see where I am. So yeah, the first few times I did this, I literally just held the camera. Oh wow, look at that. Isn't that so good? I just held the camera in this position the entire re-entry, but I kept missing the Kerbal Space Center. So eventually I said, right, I'm just going to film it like this for most of the re-entry, but I'm going to have to just occasionally flick the camera around so I kind of know whereabouts I am in relation to the Kerbal Space Center's runway. So yeah, kind of a tricky re-entry, but so worth it. Look at that. So beautiful. The mod isn't perfect, like there's definitely going to be some updates for it, I think, in the not too distant future to fix a couple of things. I think there's like those little blue flames kind of on the top of the space shuttle's cockpit. I posted a picture of this re-entry on my Twitter on my Blue Sky, and some people commented saying that it looked a bit like a bug. I don't know, what do you guys think? That probably needs to be fixed at some stage. And there's another kind of a bug thing that's more apparent when I fly the SSTO later on, so I won't cover that just yet. There are those mountains to the west of the Kerbal Space Center, by the way, so we're definitely on track to reaching the Kerbal Space Center's runway. That's why I'm changing my angle of attack a bit more just here to kind of control our re-entry speed, make sure we don't undershoot or overshoot. Now, this thing doesn't glide particularly well, just like the real space shuttle. The other thing that the other way in which this kind of differs from the normal NASA space shuttle is there are two, admittedly very hard to see, winglets clipped into the front cockpit just to simulate lifting body effect. So the real space shuttle, you know, it had a bit of a lifting body effect, but lifting body effects, I think they exist in Kerbal Space Program, but like barely. So you kind of have to clip a little bit of a wing piece or something into the front of the space shuttle to make it, you know, be able to pull up basically so you can land. Yeah, I'm kind of doing some crazy turns just here. This isn't like the space shuttle going wrong. This is me doing this. I'm trying to bleed off speed because I realized I was going to overshoot the peninsula unless we slow down fairly rapidly. So yeah, pulling some pretty extreme G's just there, but it's all right. Our little space frog in the cockpit, Son Ming Kerbin, you know, he's built different. He can withstand those G-forces just fine. Oh, we got some nice little Vaporcones there, and that mod I talked about earlier. I feel like it's a bit of a shame that this is the video that I'm introducing that mod because it's kind of overshadowed by the FireFly mod. But yeah, like I said, I put a link to the Vaporcones mod I'm using in this video's description. And you guys, I get a lot of comments, not just on YouTube, but like on, you know, my subreddit and things, saying, what mods does Matt use, or what mods do you use? And there's a mod list in the video description of all my Kerbal Space Program videos, guys. So just click the description. No one reads descriptions anymore. You kids, back in my day. Oh, here we are touching down, by the way. Just before I alienate all my younger viewers just there. There we are, touchdown. We deploy our brakes. I bound those drogue chutes to our brakes action group as well. Went slightly Sean Connery just there, just to help slow us down. And you know, the real space shuttle had a drogue chute, so yeah, overall, kind of like a NASA space shuttle, kind of a little bit different, kind of my own little interpretation. I really hope that in real life one day we get a craft like this, an SSTO space plane. Oh, the waterfall effect is magnifique when it comes to the Rapier engines. Now, some of you might recognize this SSTO from a few weeks ago. This is the space plane I built to go and rescue, I think it was Bob Kerman from the surface of Gilly as part of my Blunderbird series. I decided against designing an SSTO from scratch just for this video because A, I've already designed a craft from scratch for this video, right? The space shuttle that we just, you know, built and flew. And, you know, I don't want the video to be too long. I kind of just wanted to showcase a, you know, SSTO flight with this mod. So I thought, let's just use an SSTO that I've already built. Oh, nice little Vaporcone just there. And I've already built and shown the build for anyway, so we can just get to the point a little bit quicker. Click that card on screen or the video link in the description if you want to see the full video of this SSTO. But for now, here we are at kind of like, we're reaching nice high speed. So we're going to see those heating effects start appearing. There they are. Wow, really, really good looking. Yeah, now because I said earlier that this was an SSTO I designed to go to Gilly, so if we're going to a low Kerbin orbit, it's a little bit over-designed, right? It's going to have massively more delta V than it needs. But again, I just kind of wanted to pick an SSTO that I knew worked, and this just popped up when I was opening my, you know, spaceplane hangar load tab. Now this is kind of the issue I mentioned during the space shuttle re-entry, that there's a little bit of a bug with this mod, and that's, can you see if you look at the cockpit, and then there's the inline docking port piece, and then there's the crew cabin, the join lines, or like the seams, they're sort of glowing. It makes it really, really obvious that those are separate segments rather than just being part of one singular fuselage. I think that's a bit of a bug. You know, ideally we wouldn't have those kind of like obvious segmentation markings. Does that make sense? Hopefully if it does make sense, you can just see, and you can see what's off, and you can sort of intuit my terrible description of things. I don't know. But yeah, other than that, like, this is a very, very minor critique in an otherwise phenomenal mod. Speaking of phenomenal mods, we have Waterfall, and guys, watch this. We have now switched the Rapier engines into closed cycle mode, and it works. Like before, in the past few videos, they just didn't work. Like the plume would just turn into a big solid pink bar. I finally fixed my Waterfall install. So massive thank you to Knight of St. John. They're the developer of stock Waterfall effects. They sort of said, hey, this is what's wrong with your Kerbal Space Program game data folder. Basically, I'm an idiot. When I was installing, you know, the Waterfall mod, by the way, if you don't know, is what does all those fancy engine plume effects. Basically, I installed Waterfall and all its dependencies. I then installed Waterfall Restock, not realizing that that itself contains an older version of Waterfall, which then just overwrote my up-to-date version of Waterfall, and then things didn't work properly, and that was what was causing the issue with that engine. So it's all fixed now, so good stuff. Thank you, Knight of St. John, and apologies, the world, for me not checking things properly when installing. I really should use CCAN, shouldn't I? I've never used CCAN, and I feel like I'm too set in my ways to start, but, you know, whatever. I'm no mod maker, but one thing I can use is Photoshop, so I like making custom flags. And one of the things I changed on this SSTO from its debut on my ghillie rescue mission was I've changed some of the flags. So it's got some nuclear symbols on those, on those tail fins, just to kind of indicate that this is powered by nuclear engines. It also has a little warning saying there is nuclear fuel on board. And I changed the flags that are on the wing so that it says Lowne Aerospace on one wing and Blunderbirds on the other wing. And there we are, we have reached orbit, and we've got a fairly good trajectory to the space station as well. I wanted to make sure that we were docking to it on the light side of Kerbin so that, you can actually see what's going on. So that was the purpose of, that flight plan. So I changed the flags on the craft. The other thing I changed, I added that inline docking port behind the cockpit because, this thing didn't have any means of docking to a space station because that's not what it was designed to do. So I added the inline docking port just so that it can actually, dock to our little space station. Not only so that the crew can safely transfer onto the SSTO without needing to do an EVA, but also so that the SSTO can, deorbit the space station because the space station has no means of deorbiting itself. Well, I guess that's a lie. It's got RCS thrusters, which, we can use to deorbit it. I don't actually know if it has enough delta V to perform a deorbit. I suspect it probably does because it doesn't take that much to deorbit yourself from an 80-kilometer orbit. But, it just felt more fun and fitting to kind of use the SSTO to perform the deorbit maneuver rather than the RCS thrusters of the space station. Here you can see me doing an absolutely brilliant textbook docking. Absolutely faultless. I kind of messed things up. I forgot that I had auto SAS holding target, and then things started to spin. So I just whacked up the docking acquire force of the SSTO's docking port, and everything just sort of straightened themselves out, and it was all fine. So now that we are attached to our space station, we've got a very unrealistic amount of torque here, haven't we? We can transfer the two Kerbals on board onto the SSTO, and then we can form a retrograde burn, kind of helping control our, our center of thrust and center of mass are way off, but we have lots of RCS thrusters to counter that. And then, now that we've performed that deorbit, we can quickly burn prograde with the SSTO without the space station so that, the SSTO doesn't re-enter just yet. We want to be re-entering so that, we reach the Kerbal Space Center. So here we are, now here we go with the, kind of sad, isn't it? The re-entry of our little space station. Didn't have a very long life, but, its main purpose was to showcase re-entry. So in that regard, this is it. This is its shining moment. Literally, it's shining. Look at that. It's surprisingly resilient, those solar panels, aren't they? Okay, there they are. They've broken, but they didn't break. So that was good, wasn't it? But yeah, lovely little re-entry just there. Now we just have to watch it plummet down to the ground where it will meet its maker. There we go. Don't know, not much more to say about that really, is there? Let's crossfade back to our SSTO and start thinking about, its re-entry. Though obviously, it should hopefully have a slightly less explodey landing. We obviously want it to land in one piece at the Kerbal Space Center's runways. Here we are performing a retrograde burn. I sometimes like just gliding SSTOs back because it feels a bit more... Well, I like the challenge, but I did end up requiring the Rapier engines to get back to the Kerbal Space Center's runway because I did mildly overshoot, so we'll be using the Rapier engines, of course, in air-breathing mode. There's no oxidizer left on board, but plenty of liquid fuel. As I mentioned, we've got over 3,000 meters per second of delta remaining with those nuclear engines. Again, this thing was designed for interplanetary missions to the Eve system, and it can go a lot of places, really. So it was it had an unnecessarily large range for what I needed it to do in this mission. But, I think it's a really good-looking SSTO. Pairs wonderfully with the really, really good-looking re-entry effects of the FireFly mod. I'm trying to do the whole thing was hold the camera's angle here so you can kind of get the same sort of perspective as we got with the space shuttle re-entry, but I did still need to occasionally pan the camera around to make sure we were on a good course for the Kerbal Space Center. Did this one first time though, because obviously it went wrong and I kept this take in. So yeah. Oh yeah, and the antenna broke. I think I accidentally hit one of the action groups. I think it was bound to like action group number 9 and I accidentally clicked that button. And then the antenna deployed without me realizing, and I only realized way too late that it was extended, and then it was destroyed just a little Just a little fun little anecdote about this mission, really. And then we've got some Vaporcones showing up as we kind of dip in and out of, well, above and below Mach 1 on our approach to the Kerbal Space Center. I've got a nice little screenshot just there for my album. Bang, there's another one. And yeah, there's the Kerbal Space Center appearing ahead of us. We should easily be able to get there without any trouble. And that pretty much, yeah, is the mission coming to an end. Did you guys enjoy this video? What did you think of the FireFly mod? I will take no opinions other than positive ones, because frankly, objectively, this mod is just brilliant. I love it. And yeah, I'll definitely going to do more mod showcases this year. Not just visual mods. I do intend to do gameplay mods as well, be it ones that add new parts or ones that add new planets and moons. Outer Planets mod is definitely on my radar to visit at some point this year. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that. And hey, if you want to support what I do here, then you could sign up to my Patreon scheme or my channel member program, like the wonderful people on the right-hand side of the screen did. Honestly, guys, it's your support that makes this content all possible. So huge, huge, huge sincere thanks if you are one of my supporters on there. But yeah, that's pretty much the video. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the mod, and I'll catch you all in the next video, which Monday, space news. That's it. That's the end. Bye then. Love you.